A stunning blow from the big Greek lexicon which an old fellow in a black gown fired at him, said Ned. Instantly Sir What's-his-name recovered himself, pitched the tyrant out the window, and turned to join the lady, victorious but with a bump on his brow, found the door locked, tore up the curtains, made a rope ladder, got halfway down when the ladder broke, and he went head first into the moat 60 feet below. Could swim like a duck, paddle round the castle till he came to a little door guarded by 2 stout fellows, knocked their heads together till they cracked like a couple of nuts. Then, by trifling exertion of his prodigious strength, he smashed in the door, went up a pair of stone steps, covered with dust a foot thick, toads as big as your fist, and spiders that would frighten you into hysterics. Miss March, at the top of these steps he came plump upon a sight that took his breath away and chilled his blood. A tall figure, all in white, with a veil over its face and a lamp in its wasted hand, went on Meg. It beckoned, gliding noiselessly before him down a corridor as dark and cold as any tomb. Shadowy effigies in armor stood on either side. A dead silence reigned, the lamp burned blue, and a ghostly figure ever and anon turned its face toward him, showing the glitter of awful eyes through its white veil. They reached a curtained door, behind which sounded lovely music. He sprang forward to enter, but the spectre plucked him back, and waved threateningly before him. "A snuff-box," said Joe in a sepulchral tone, which convulsed the audience. "Thank ye," said the knight politely, as he took a pinch, and sneezed several times, so violently that his head fell off. "Ha, ha!" laughed the ghost, and having peeped through the keyhole at the princesses spinning away for dear life, the evil spirit picked up her victim and put him in a large tin box, where there were 11 other knights packed together without their heads, like sardines, who all rose and began to dance a hornpipe, cut in Fred, as Joe paused for breath. And as they danced, the rubbishy old castle turned to a man-of-war in full sail. Up with the jib, reef the topsail halyards, held hard a lee, and mend the guns, roared Captain, as a Portuguese pirate hove in sight with a flag black as ink flying from her foremast. "Go in and win, my hearties," said the captain, and a tremendous fight began. Of course the British beat. They always do. "No, they don't," cried Joe, aside. Having taken the pirate captain prisoner, sailed slap over the schooner, whose decks were piled with dead, and lee scuppers ran blood, for the order had been cutlasses and die hard. "Boatswain's mate, take a bite of the flying jib sheet and start this villain. If he don't confess his sins double quick," said the British captain. The Portuguese held his tongue like a brick and walked the plank, while the jolly tars cheered like mad. But a sly dog dived, came up under the man-of-war, scuttled her, and down she went with all sails set to the bottom of the sea, where— "Oh, gracious, what shall I say?" cried Sally, as Fred ended his rigmarole, in which he had jumbled together pell-mell nautical phrases and facts out of one of his favorite books. "Well, they went to the bottom, and a nice mermaid welcomed them, but was much grieved on finding the box of headless knights, and kindly pickled them in brine, hoping to discover the mystery about them, for, being a woman, she was curious. By and by a diver came down, and the mermaid said, 'I'll give you this box of pearls if you can take it up,' for she wanted to restore the poor things to life, and couldn't raise the heavy load herself. So the diver hoisted it up, and was much disappointed on opening it to find no pearls. He left it in a great lonely field, where it was found by little goose girl, who kept 100 fat geese in the field," said Amy, when Sally's invention gave out. "The little girl was sorry for them, and asked an old woman what she should do to help them. 'Your geese will tell you they know everything,' said the old woman. So she asked what she should use for new heads, since the old ones were lost, and all the geese opened their 100 mouths and screamed." "Cabbages," continued Laurie promptly. "Just the thing," said the girl, and ran to get 12 fine ones from her garden. She put them on. The knights arrived at once, thanked her, and went on their way rejoicing, never knowing the difference, for there were so many other heads like them in the world that no one thought anything about it. The knight in whom I'm interested went back to find the pretty face and learned that the princesses had spun themselves free and all gone to be married but one. He was in a great state of mind at that, and mounting the colt, who stood by him through thick and thin, rushed to the castle to see which was left. Peeping over the hedge, she saw the queen of his affections picking flowers in her garden. "Will you give me a rose?" said he. "You must come and get it. I can't come to you. It isn't proper," said she, "as sweet as honey." He tried to climb over the hedge, but it seemed to grow higher and higher. Then he tried to push through, but it grew thicker and thicker, and he was in despair. So he patiently broke twig after twig, till he had made a little hole through which he peeped, saying imploringly, "Let me in, let me in." But the pretty princess did not seem to understand, for she picked her roses quietly and left him to fight his way in. Whether he did or not, Frank will tell you. "I can't. I'm not playing. I never do," said Frank, dismayed at the sentimental predicament out of which he was to rescue the absurd couple. Beth had disappeared behind Joe, and Grace was asleep. "So the poor knight is to be left sticking in a hedge, is he?" asked Mr. Brooks, still watching the river and playing with the wild rose in his buttonhole. "I guess the princess gave him a posy and opened the gate after a while," said Laurie, smiling to himself as he threw acorns at his tutor. "What a piece of nonsense we have made! With practice we might do something quite clever. Do you know Truth?" asked Sally after they had left over the store. "I hope so," said Meg soberly. "The game, I mean." "What is it?" said Fred. "Why, you pile up your hands, choose a number, and draw out in turn, and the person who draws out at the number has to answer truly any questions put by the rest. It's a great fun." "Let's try it," said Joe, who liked new experiments. Miss Kate and Mr. Brooke, Meg and Ned declined, but Fred, Sally, Joe, and Laurie piled and drew, and the lot fell to Laurie. "Who are your heroes?" asked Joe. "Grandfather and Napoleon." "Which lady do you think is prettiest?" said Sally. "Margaret." "Which do you like best?" from Fred. "Joe, of course." "What silly questions you ask!" And Joe gave a disdainful shrug as the rest laughed at Laurie's matter-of-fact tone. "Try again. Truth isn't a bad game," said Fred. "It's a very good one for you," retorted Joe in a low voice. Her turn next. "What's your greatest fault?" asked Fred, by way of testing her in a virtue he lacked himself. "A quick temper." "What do you wish for?" said Laurie. "A pair of bootlacings," returned Joe, guessing and defeating his purpose. "Not a true answer. You must say what you really do want most." "Genius, don't you wish you could give it to me, Laurie?" And she slyly smiled in his disappointed face. "What virtues do you most admire in a man?" asked Sally. "Courage and honesty." "Now my turn," said Fred, as his hand came last. "Let's give it to him," whispered Laurie to Joe, who nodded and asked at once, "Didn't you cheat at croquet?" "Well, yes, a little bit." "Good. Didn't you take your story out of The Sea Lion?" said Laurie. "Rather." "Don't you think the English nation perfect in every respect?" asked Sally. "I should be ashamed of myself if I didn't." "He's a true John Bull. Now, Miss Sally, you shall have a chance without waiting to draw. I'll harrow up your feelings first by asking if you don't think you are something of a flirt," said Laurie, as Joe nodded to Fred at a sign that peace was declared. "You impertinent boy, of course I'm not!" exclaimed Sally, with an air that proved the contrary. "What do you hate the most?" asked Fred. "Spiders and rice pudding." "What do you like the best?" asked Joe. "Dancing and French gloves." "Well, I think the truth is a very silly play. Let's have a sensible game of authors to refresh our minds, proposed Joe. Ned, Frank, and the little girls joined in this, and while it went on, the three elders sat apart, talking. Miss Kate took out her sketch again, and Margaret watched her, while Mr. Brooke lay in the grass with a book which she did not read. "How beautifully you do it! I wish I could draw," said Meg, with mingled admiration and regret in her voice. "Why don't you learn? I should think you had taste and talent for it," replied Miss Kate graciously. "I haven't time." "Your mamma prefers other accomplishments, I fancy. So did mine, but I proved to her that I had talent by taking a few lessons privately, and then she was quite willing I should go on. Can't you do the same with your governess?" "I have none." "I forgot. Young ladies in America go to school more than with us. Very fine schools there, too, Papa says. You go to a private one, I suppose?" "I don't go at all. I'm a governess myself."